Well, welcome everyone. If you guys aren't able to attend the webinar, please feel free to tune in. We have a special guest today, Kate. She's the support product manager for Twilio and ISV, and she's going to give us a masterclass on how to understand the incoming call routing logic, as well as like figuring out where your voicemails are going and to which forwarding number the calls are going to be routed to. So the agenda for today is going to be a quick introduction with Kate, learning more about the phone number settings in the location level settings of your Go High Level account. We're going to learn about whisper messages, call recordings, where to find those call recordings as well, and the reporting because they kind of go hand in hand. The inbound call routing logic, which is the bread and butter of this webinar, how to set up and troubleshoot international calling issues, the Call Connect feature, and then we will provide you a ton of help articles and do a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. So before we get started, Kate, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to the group?
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Kate from High Level. I am an ISV specialist, so anything regarding email and phone settings, you'll come to me. Right now, we have the ISV feature, which is pretty new. So you guys don't have to bother much about setting up your own Twilio and Mailgun, but today we're still gonna walk over some Twilio stuff, so that gives you like a background of what's happening with the phone system. So should we get started now? Or
Yeah, thank you so much, Kate.
right. Let me share my screen. All right, so that's the agenda for today. And first, I'm just going to go over some phone settings. So once you, let me admit, yeah. So once you're in the accounts, this is all based on after you already set up the account and got a Twilio number, you would go to settings and then go inside the phone numbers tab. And this is where you would get the number. So we're going to have another webinar on how to get your number, like porting numbers over, how to get an international number and so on. But right now we're just going to talk about the numbers configurations after you got the number. So let's just say if we're looking at this Twilio number here, once you get the number, it's usually there would be nothing configured here. So I'm going to walk you through what's each settings for. So the first field, it's the number name. So essentially it's just how you would mark this number as, so it's just for your own reference. It doesn't do anything to the number. So it's just for your place. Like you can mark it as Google Ads, or you can just name it so you will know what that Twilio number is for. And the second field is forward calls to. So this field is where you would put in your own phone number to take the calls, because high level, we don't actually take calls. We don't take inbound calls in the system. We don't take it in the mobile app. We're always going to forward the calls to your phone number. So this is one of the fields that we will forward the calls to. Later on, we're going to introduce other fields that we'll also forward the calls to based on like a chart based on whether or not your leads are assigned. But this is one of the fields that it will forward the calls to. And the third option here, pass called number as caller ID. So what this means, it's also a fairly new feature, I would say. What happened is by default, the system passes the number of the caller. So like any leads who call the Twilio number, it will show up on your phone as if the lead's calling you straight up to your phone. Like you won't know if it's a business call or not. So this feature is useful when you want to have the Twilio number. So pass call to number, this means the Twilio number that the lead's called, and it's going to show us the caller ID. So when you have the Twilio number saved on your phone, then that way you would know it as soon as the leads call you. And that is convenient. So you can enable this if you need it. The next option, it's enable call connect feature. So what this means is, let's just say if you have an incoming call this will require you to press any key to connect. So when you enable this option, it's going to ask you to update the whisper message, because in that case, you would enable the whisper message to say call from the business name, like whatever that would indicate you to press any key to connect. So once you get the call, it's going to announce the message, and you would press any key and it's going to connect you with the lead. This is useful when it comes to like resulting in higher accuracy in call reporting. I'm going to go over why this feature is useful later on, but the whisper message is what comes with this call connect feature. So, but you don't need the call connect feature. You can have the whisper message on its own. Like if you don't like to press any key to connect, you can still set up the whisper message where it says call from the source, so that you would know where the leads is from, like which business account that is from. And yeah, the next feature would be the call recording. So this one, after you enable it, it's going to apply to all the inbound and outbound calls. So for example, if you're trying to dial out from the dialer, it's going to say to the lead before they answer, before you guys were connected, it's going to say this call was recorded for quality assurance. And this would apply to campaign calls and stuff. Unfortunately, campaign calls, it's always going to announce the call recording message. There's no way to get rid of it. But if you're talking about manual calls from the dialer, then in this case, depending on where you are as well, like for example, if you're in some areas that always require you to announce a call recording message, then you would need to always have this message. But in an area where you might not need it, then you can put a few space here and then hit update, and that way it won't announce anything, but the call will still be connected. So that is the call connect feature. And the next one is the incoming call timeout. So that is going to apply to any leads who are trying to call the Twilio number. And when the Twilio number will forward the calls to your phone, then this is where we're trying to determine how long we're going to try to wait your forwarding number for. So it's not exactly the same seconds as if you were trying to say like 1 second, then it won't really actually just ring 1 second. It will still do a few wings, but 1 second, it's almost like 2 wings, 2 to 3 wings, I would say, depending on how long it takes from the Twilio to connect to your carrier. And that would be for incoming call timeout. And for outbound call timeout, this is going to apply to the call dialer. So if you're trying to make an outbound call to the lead, how long do you want our call dialer to push the call for? Like usually by default, they are all like around 30 seconds. That's usually how long it would hit the lead's phone. But if you want it to be longer, you can do a minute, or if you want it to be shorter, like just 20 seconds would be a good number. But yeah, if they are all off, then it should be 30 seconds by default. So that would be some phone number settings that we just go over. So the next one is about, yeah, so the whisper message for this feature here, aside from it, the connect feature that we have, we also have the whisper message in the campaign call step. So that would be under the workflows. So by default, there's also this call whisper message that would announce what the call is to the user. So let's just say if you were wondering, I didn't set up any whisper, but I'm still hearing this message. You have a new lead, John Smith, press any button to connect. That's probably a call from the campaign. And this is one place that you can configure your own whisper message. But by default here, it has its own whisper message already for the call step in the campaign. So later on, we'll explain how this feature, call connect feature, will work. Before we do that, let's talk about other areas of the platform which it will show the inbound calls. So let's go into our call reporting page. So let's just say if you're getting inbound calls, then if you go to the reporting tab under call reporting, this is where it will show all of the inbound calls and outbound calls. So for example, if you are trying to expand the call recordings. If you have call recordings enabled, it will show up in here. But this is what it will show you the call flow, like what the call flow will look like. So this is the leads number. So the phone number column would be the leads number. And then this is the Twilio number that they're trying to call. So let's just say if you were having troubles with figuring out what, you don't know which Twilio number that they called, and you can then refer back to the call logs and it will show you the call flow. For outbound calls, yeah, this is for my Twilio number to the outbound call. So it will show you the details of the call and how many calls got answered. And the next step is when there is an inbound call happened, we're going to create a new lead. So once you click into the lead, this is what it will show up. So let's just say this is Jeremy's testing numbers. Let's just say if he made an inbound call, it's showing as completed when I answered it. All the outbound calls is going to show up in here. So this is useful when we're trying to troubleshoot. For example, if we want to see if the lead is assigned to somebody. Later on, we're going to go into the call routing chart to explain why this view is important. So let's go here. Yep. So this is what the chart would look like. When there is an incoming call, we're going to look at these 4 questions, and that would determine how calls will be forwarded. Unfortunately, we don't have the feature to call multiple users at once, but based on your setup, we're going to locate the right phone number to call. So when the first layer, it's going to be if the Twilio number is assigned to a user, that is the highest priority. How do we check that is we're going to settings, my staff, and then let's edit one of the user, expand call and voicemail settings. And then if you click into the drop down here, this is where you can assign your Twilio number to the users. This is a one-to-one relationship, so you cannot assign multiple Twilio number to a user, or you cannot assign one Twilio number to multiple users. It has to be like just one phone number dedicated to one user. So in this case, let me assign the number here. And what happened is after I assign the Twilio number to the users, all of the calls will be going to this user one. Every calls, no matter what. So it doesn't matter what you've set up in the forwarding number or what you've set up, what you've assigned to the lead as a user, then no matter what, it will always go to the user phone number. So let's just say if you want the Twilio number to always forward the calls to this number, there are times where your leads might be assigned to someone else, and then it's going to forward the call to that other user, but you don't want that. You always want the calls to go to straight up that forwarding number. Then the best way is to create a dummy user and assign a Twilio number to that user. So that brings into our next route is whether or not the incoming call number is assigned to a user. So how do we check if the lead is assigned to a user? We're going to go back to the context page. So yeah, this is the context. So you would just look up the number you use to call the Twilio number. So let's just say if you were trying to test by calling the Twilio number, but for some reason it's always routed to the wrong number, and you're trying to troubleshoot if the incoming call, if the number you used to call, it's actually assigned to a user, then you would look up your number here. And let's just say this
We're
is
using for the test, correct, Kate?
Yeah, we could. So let me see my number is assigned. Yeah, I think I just assigned it. Yeah, let me change it here. This is the right one. Okay, so just now I assigned this number to myself. And let's just say if Jeremy is assigned to user 2 instead. So if he's making an inbound call right now, it's actually going to go to user 1 because the Twilio number is assigned to me. Jeremy, do you want to make a call here? We can show.
Yeah, I can definitely make a call. Can you give me the number really quick? Actually, wait, I think I have it. The 0712.
Yeah, yeah. 778 0712. Yeah, 907 0712.
Calling right now.
Okay, my phone is on silence.
Yeah, they went straight to the default voicemail that we set up, the testing voicemail.
Oh yeah, that's good. Okay. Yeah, so I'm getting the call. So this isn't my number. So you can see that when Jeremy is assigned to user two, it actually still the calls is still going to my number. And that's because that my number, this Twilio number is assigned to me, which it will forward to my number instead. So that is the first layer. And maybe you have a question, what if my user phone number is blank? Then where will it go? Then the next step is it's going to go to the forwarding number that's configured here instead. So, oh yeah, but Jeremy is assigned. So yeah, it actually will go to the user to test. In this case, what happened in here, so let's just say if I unassigned the number from my user, then the second layer is going to be based on whether or not this number here, the leads phone number, it's assigned to any of the user. So any of the user who has a forwarding number, the calls will go to that user assigned to the contact. So this is how we would check if the user is assigned. And if the user is not assigned to the contact and the Twilio number it's not assigned to any users, then this is where it comes down to your phone number configured in the forwarding number here. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. If those two questions are no, then it will go to the forwarding number. And if the forwarding number is blank, then it will go to the company settings phone number in here. Yep, company phone number. So for the forwarding number itself that you configured here, maybe you already have those questions checked and the forwarding number, it's still not connecting. Like you're still having issues with routing calls to the forwarding number. Usually the troubleshooting step would be, what if we call the forwarding number directly? What would happen after? So let's just say if your forwarding number might be a Google Voice number or Wing Central number, like any other numbers that is not a cell phone that can easily take calls, maybe you have your own setup, then maybe what's happening is blocking the Twilio number because it might have some whisper message that you set up. Maybe it's a robotic voice, so they were declining all the robotic calls. So that is one step to troubleshoot is to call the forwarding number directly and see how it goes. And so so if you were testing with the forwarding number, it's best to turn off the whisper message and turn off the call connect feature because they all announces something. So that might make the carrier declining the call. And another issue that it might not be forwarded is because of some international permissions. So for example, if the forwarding number that you're trying to make it to go to it's a Mexico number plus 52 something, then plus 5 to something. So in that case, we're going to have to enable geo permission in the Twilio logs. So we have an article on that. Let us know if you guys have any question, if you want to learn more about like forwarding internationally for the calls. And the last step, of course, we don't want to force make you to look at Twilio logs, but then the last step is to look at Twilio logs if it's still not forwarding correctly. If you have your own Twilio accounts, the steps would be to go inside your Twilio accounts, go to the sub accounts that your high level account is in. Again, our articles has like the full step on it, but the idea once we look at the Twilio logs is to see if it's actually going to the number that you configured. So for example, how do we read this is the lead that we were testing with. So when the lead make an inbound call, it's going to call this Twilio number. So this is our Twilio number. And then Twilio is going to generate another call from the lead's phone number to my phone number. So this will be my forwarding number that's configured in here. And from here, this is where, let's just say if you were having this option pass called number as caller ID, what changes the call logs is, let's just say if you were trying to call this Twilio number, then this Twilio number will be the from number that's in this column here. So instead of using the lead's phone number to call your forwarding number, we're going to use the Twilio number to call the forwarding number that you configured. So that's a little bit of overview of what the Twilio call logs looks like.
Okay, the reason that the why to this aspect of this feature of the call log is so that they can figure out which forwarding number at which level of the hierarchy is the call forwarding to. So if they're not receiving their voicemails to the correct number, this is how you would find out which phone number is getting the messages.
Yeah. So yeah, that is one view that you can refer to, but of course we don't want you to come into here because Twilio might be a confusing UI for you. So the steps to troubleshoot again would be: first step, see if the Twilio number is assigned to the user in the call and voicemail settings. Second one is to look at the leads, see if they're assigned. Third step is to see if you have a forwarding number, and the last step is the company phone number. So this brings us to the next question. What if you have no number configured? So for now, we do not support the feature to have the calls that goes into voicemail directly. We will not be able to play the voicemail directly if there's no company phone number configured here. So you will always need a number, unfortunately, because if the call doesn't get forwarded anywhere, then the call will just drop. We won't. The reason why we have to have a phone number is because we will need to look up whether or not the number that can take calls. And if they can't take calls, for example, if it went to a voicemail, then before the call drops, then it's going to drop our voicemail instead in the company settings. So if you don't want to have any forwarding number, then you can have a virtual number like Google Voice number, any virtual number that you can put in here, then at least it's trying to forward to something, then that's where we'll be able to drop the voicemail. So we were talking about the call timeout. So there's 3 layers to the incoming call timeout. This is one call timeout field and another call timeout field. You will see it in here. This is another incoming call timeout. This would only apply if the Twilio number is assigned to the user. So if this is the Twilio number assigned, then we'll be referring to this call timeout here as a higher priority. The reason why it has to be 20 seconds or less is because usually the forwarded numbers voicemail would answer outside of 20 seconds, like after 20 seconds. So we would need to drop the call before their voicemail answers in order to play our voicemail. So we are trying to replace our voicemail before their voicemail answers. So this would be the first priority if the number is assigned. The second one is if you have the call timeout enabled from here. If you don't have it enabled, then the last step we're going to refer to is the call timeout that's set in this call and voicemail settings here. So, so we were talking about getting a virtual number in the company phone number, and what we could do here is to set the call timeout to 1 second, or you can do that in here as well. You can set it to 1 second. So it's going to try to route the call in just 1 second, and then after 1 second, maybe 2 to 3 winks, then it's going to drop our voicemail that we upload here. So for the voicemail file needs to always be at its lowest quality possible. So usually what happens is maybe you would have your own voicemail. Oh, not here. Convert. Yeah, so this website is usually what I use to upload. For example, if you have a voicemail file that doesn't seem to work, Then you would upload your voicemail here, adjust the quality to its lowest, and convert it to MP3. So once you do that, you can upload the voicemail here and test again. Because usually, depending on the phone carrier, maybe the voicemail quality was too high for us to replace it with the carrier. So this is one way to check. And the reason why we need to upload a call and voicemail settings here, there's the incoming call timeout that we've configured here. So after the call times out within 20 seconds, we're going to try to drop off voicemail. Another way the voicemail could be applied if you have the call connect feature enabled. So let's just say if you get an incoming call and we're going to try to ask you to press any button to connect. But what if nobody press any button to connect? Then it means it's going to go to voicemail. And that's how we determined that we're going to play the company voicemail here, because after we wait for how long, like this call timeout here, maybe for 30 seconds, nobody picks up. So that's how we determined that the call should go to the voicemail that's uploaded here. And the next thing we're going to talk about is international calling. So depending on what the country that the location is set to, so for example, my test location right now is set to Canada. So all of my phone number would have a +1 that is going to try to, so as long as I'm typing some number, it's going to try to add a +1. But once the phone number is completed, the +1 number would be gone. So by default, there is a +1 in front. But let's just say if you're trying to forward it to an international number, then when you paste a number, do not start by typing the local number. Instead, start by typing the area code of that area. So like, for example, if I were trying to forward to an Australian number, then you would do +61 here. So as long as this is included, then it should try to forward internationally. So if you're trying to do Mexico number, you would start with +32 and then start by typing the rest of the number here. And the next step is the geo permission. So I will just quickly show you how you can enable geo permission for your voice. So you would just type geo here and then click into the voice one. And this is the page where you would enable international calling for the country you want. So like say Mexico, and you would just check on the country and hit save. So that's how you can forward the call internationally. And we also have a bundle set up if we're trying to get international numbers for international calling, but that one we're going to cover in another webinar. And let's just say if you are using ISV, like our lead connector phone system for forwarding international calls, by default, it should be enabled already. But if not, reach out to our support and then we can enable that country for you. And the next slides we have is the call connect feature. So we're going to introduce you the workflow that's connected to all of these call connect missed call features. So you might notice this missed call text back. This is really easy. So once you enable it, anybody who made an inbound call will, as long as the forwarding number doesn't answer, then it would fire this message. And another feature, it's like this is the call status workflow that you can set up. So you don't, so you have would have like a more in-depth workflow action. So for example, if I not only want to send this SMS, I want to also set up my own workflow to indicate, maybe I want to tag them, I want to do some more than just sending them a message. Then this is where you can do a workflow with the call status that you want. So for example, if we come into the automation here. Yep. So you would set up a call status workflow. And from here, this is the call status. Maybe you would just exclude a completed one and you just want to analyze the results for the incompleted calls. So once the call comes in, how do we determine whether or not the call is not complete? So this is one of the reason why we have the call connect feature later on. So if we were to look at this article here, there's two ways to capture call results. one way is the call connect feature, and the other way is the call timeout. I'm going to talk about the call timeout first because that is what was available before for a long time. And later on, we have the call connect feature. So the reason why we need to determine our call results based on the call timeout, it's because let's just say if you have an incoming call, and your forwarding number has its own voicemail that's going to answer after we try to forward, like after we try to connect the call after a few rings, right? So we're we're going to determine the call results by the call timeout because we won't know if it's a human or if it's a voicemail that's answering the call. So when you get a phone call on your phone, we're going to try to route the call to you within 20 seconds or even less. So this call timeout, to capture call results, this feature here, you would need to test because every forwarding number's voicemail answers differently. So let's just say my voicemail answers within 30 seconds. Then I would be able to just set the call timeout to 20 seconds. And after the leads call the Twilio number and the Twilio number try to ring your phone number for 20 seconds, as long as your voicemail doesn't answer the call, we would be able to drop the call after the call times out at 20 seconds. So after we drop the call within that time frame, that's how we determine, okay, nobody picks up. We're gonna play our uploaded voicemail and done. That's succeeded. So, but let's just say if there's some scenario where your voicemail of the forwarding number, it's set to answer right away. So in this case, even if we set up the call timeout to 1 or 2 seconds, that might not work because your voicemail answered right away. There's not a chance for us to drop the call because your voicemail already answered. It almost feels like to us that you're answering the call right away. So that is one of the cases why this feature might not work for the incoming call timeout. Oh,
Can an example of that be when you're on airplane mode or do not disturb?
exactly. When you're sleeping, like as long as your phone is trying to, like iPhone has this feature to silent unknown calls. So that could be one of the reasons. Well, as long as your call it's in do not disturb mode, this feature might not be reliable. So that's why we say something like, oh, this will result in higher accuracy of call reporting because this relying on the call timeout might not be enough. And this feature also requires you to test in a way that, let's just say, if you test with 20 seconds, maybe your voicemail answers within 10 seconds. So we need to adjust it to 5 seconds. So it's sometimes you might even have to test with like a lower number, like maybe 20 seconds doesn't work. Then you would do 15 seconds, 10 seconds, and so on. So it all depends on um, whether or not we would drop the call before it reaches your voicemail. So that this is what we used to have. And later on, we would have this call connect feature. But um, in this case, it's either one way or the other. So this call connect feature is what happened is we are going to ask you to press any button to connect. And that button, it's what determines whether or not the call is completed or not. So when you're getting an incoming call, uh, you would set this whisper message and you always have to press any button to connect or else the call would not be marked as completed. So that's how we make it so that you would have higher accuracy because even if your phone number is in sleep mode, uh, whatever mode that is it is on, as long as there's not a human being who press any button on the keypad, then that's how we would be able to mark the call as completed or not. So that is how we can drop the voicemail after, because after you enable the call connect feature, that's how we can do that. And then let's see what else. Oh yeah, and you would also want to check if the forwarding number is compatible. So for example, if you're trying to drop your voicemail, if the call connect feature doesn't seem to work, check if the Google Voice number, maybe they have something that would contradict the feature together. Because sometimes I've seen like the call connect feature, it's affecting how the forwarding number is taking the call. So for example, if they have a settings that would decline like the robotic voice, or there might be some um yeah, maybe the forwarding number is just not compatible to get incoming call. But that is different cases. Feel free to reach out to our support so we can see, like, test things out. But generally, if you don't want the voicemail to play after like a few seconds, you can just do 1 second to begin to test with. And oh yeah, and then the uploaded voicemail might be too high. That might be one of the reason why it's not playing the voicemail. And that's pretty much it. And now that we have some time, we can talk about how to set up like a round robin style of calls. Like, because we mentioned that we can't take calls in the system. We cannot also call multiple users at the same time, but this is what you can set up if the calls are incompleted and you're trying to contact the lead later on with a different user. So for example, after the lead is trying to make an incoming call to your Twilio number and the call wasn't completed. So what we can set up is a workflow like this, as long as the call is not completed. And then we're going to assign the lead to different users and make a call step in between. So this is like our style of round robining calls. It's just a workaround that we will show you. Is that let's just say if you have a forwarding number, the forwarding number doesn't take calls, then in this call step here, we're going to assign the lead to the user one first, which it's going to fire the calls to user one because the lead is assigned. Then it's going to call user one. And then if user one doesn't take the calls, then you would assign the lead to user two and then fire the call to user two. But remember, we talked about the chart of how the incoming call works. So remember, the Twilio number can't be assigned to the users because all the calls will always go to the user phone number. So in this case, make sure you have the Twilio number unassigned. And in the settings, you would do stop on response. And because if they answer the call, then you do not want the call flow to continue. So this is one workaround that can help with the calls, like to take round robining calls. So I've shown you the call logs here. So once you go into the call logs, then this is a place where it will show all of your calls to see if it's going to the right number. So if you have an incoming call to the Twilio number, then we're going to make another call to call your forwarding number. So that is pretty much it. I think I've covered everything. Jeremy, do you think there's any other?
No, we definitely have a lot of questions, so I'd love to take this forward into the Q&A session if I can share the screen.
Yeah. Let me stop sharing. Okay, let's start with.
But before we get into the questions, I do want to let everybody know that I'm going to be sending you guys a copy of this slideshow that we're using, the deck. Just so in case you guys have any questions or need any reference points and to how to set up your inbound call routing or to troubleshoot it yourself if you have any issues. But before I send this to you, I do want you guys to take a quick second to fill out a post webinar recap, just letting us know how we did. If there's any insight into a future webinar that you guys want to see, we're looking at all of these survey results that we get, all the responses, so that we can curate upcoming webinar series based exactly on your agency needs. So you guys can scan this QR code and it'll take you to our survey page. I'm going to pause it here so that I can provide you guys that link in the chat as well. Yeah, Nick, we will also definitely be able to send you the guys the recordings. The recordings take about 24 hours to process and upload, but they will be also on the Go High Level YouTube channel, which I'll discuss momentarily. That should be the link to the survey. This webinar will also have the links to additional resources from our help article site. These are updated constantly. Also, if you guys have feedback from the articles, please feel free to reach out to us on those articles as well. But most of these have been updated with current slideshows and current help steps into how to set up like your voicemail configuration. Twilio ISV, if you have any inquiries about how to set it up or about what it covers. Which I know wasn't covered in this webinar exactly, but it is kind of relevant to the topic at hand. A couple of other features that we discussed was the call statuses, call connect, troubleshooting and testing the call statuses. I know I put an article from Twilio itself into the different types of call statuses, because again, that typically falls under Twilio's purview, but we do support it. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask, because we're now getting to our next section, which is the Q&A section. But before I do that, I do want to talk about the channels of support that you guys have available to you. We have the 24/7 online chat support. It's available on desktop only to agency admins. All you have to do is log into your account, click that little blue question mark in the top right, and then select chat support from there. We have agents available 24/7. We also do have phone support, which is also 24/7. The number is 1-888-732-4197. Of course, we have the Facebook group, which we're live streaming this webinar on currently. It's very active. There's a lot of agencies engaged in there. Maybe you have a question that someone else has also experienced previously. You guys can feed each other some insights or talk about strategy in there. Feel free to lead back into that community and be engaged. We are going to be having webinar series every Tuesdays and Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Daylight Time currently. So you guys can always feel free to reach out to that as well. All right, so I'm getting a lot of questions inbound. So I'm going to stop our screen sharing session now. Kate, we have a couple of questions that are public and some private questions that I'm going to ask for the agency owners as well. So our first question for you, Kate, was with Jules. Jules wanted to know more about the interactive text responses. I was thinking more along the lines of a workflow, but I think she might have been confused with the call whisper, where you wanted them to click a message.
Call. Oh, like.
For call connect.
Okay. Are you referring to the incoming call or the interactive sending messages?
Yeah, the question said, so we could send an inbound call to the voicemail. I have a message such as thanks for calling the investment line. If you wanted to bold, press 1. For silver, press 2. Leave a message, press 3. But that's more of a voicemail configuration setup.
Yeah, that would be more like, yeah, you can do it to voicemail. It sounds more like a phone tree where we need to, it's not supported within high level, so you need to boot up, but it sounds like a phone tree. So you would, like on IVR, where you will have responses based on which button to press. That's not available right now. If you want it, you might have to just integrate with other software and have the Twilio number forwarded to that number for now.
What I was thinking is that the important thing is the responses. So whether or not somebody texts the number to get an automatic response, and then based on the reply that they get, giving them directions, do this, do that, or do the other, then they do that, and then it follows up with something else. So they may get information, they may get a video, they may get sent to links, whatever it is.
It sounds like you can set up this workflow for capturing the customer response. Not for calls, but then you can also have a call status, but it's going to be for all the calls and they can't press any button. But let's just say if you're trying to capture the leads, like whatever they text to the number, you can do a customer replied workflow, and you can say exact match phrase. So for example, if on your ads, you can say like text rewards to to this number. Then this is going to capture any leads who is trying to capture rewards to your Twilio number, and then you can fire SMS, like send SMS like you have the reward, like that is that what you're looking for?
Yes, it is, but I also wanted to maybe go one step further, whereby we may even do a survey of something. So
Oh,
it could be that we ask their name, we ask their city, we ask, and each time they're responding back, and then we ask them more information each time.
yeah. So it's not like what do you call it? Like the chat where you can capture the response in chat, but you can set up a survey or a form that asks them to fill out, like you have the reward, here's a form to fill it out. That could be one of the way that you can capture their name and stuff, but it's going to redirect them to a page. It's not going to be like a live chat or something where it will say like what's your name and then capture their name. It might be possible with your own custom setup, but it's not going to be straightforward. Or maybe I'm missing something. Maybe
Like
we
if you do an if else action waiting for them to reply,
yeah, that's what I'm
yeah,
thinking. Maybe I'm missing
you're looking
something.
for their intent. Yeah,
If you look for
either
the reply,
you'd have to add a wait step to wait for the
yeah,
contact
wait
reply.
for customer reply, and then but you would send an SMS first. So like, what's your name? It might be possible, yeah. Wait for customer reply to the SMS. And then something like if the customer replied message is, or would you not even, would you
Well,
just
if you
like update contact field? And then from here you would update the contact field.
you can do contact name if it allows you to, and then just use the message
Oh, yeah.
body. Yep, and then there should be a custom one for message body.
Message body. Oh, yeah, something like this.
That could also work. That could work to take their responses and update their contact card. But if you're wanting to have them fill out a form or have them, get a specific YouTube link, then you need the if else element saying if they responded saying they're interested in option 1, or if they responded saying they're interested in option 2, you can make up to 20 branches using the if else action based on their reply.
Oh, okay. I'm glad I'm not like, oh no. This is
Sounds
not
good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
I was gonna say no.
There is a document showing how to use this if else logic.
Yeah.
Where did I go to find that?
And
I just
you
do
have to
wait
add,
here
yep.
and then do update contact field. I guess you can just, yeah, you can chim in some if else things here. So if they didn't reply, then you can continue to push for an answer. But I think this is what the framework will look like, is you're gonna wait for the customer reply to this first SMS, and then you will update the contact field, the message body.
And all of these responses will be captured and recorded and placed somewhere.
Yeah, so this field, this action here, update contact field, it's going to update the first name with the message body, which would be the SMS that they would reply to. So the first question here, what's your name? I haven't tested this out though, so feel free to reach out to our chat if you have more questions.
If at the very end I wanted to send the information to, say, a client, maybe this is a lead gen type strategy, could that be done too at the very end?
Like a notification?
A notification, hey, you got this new response, and then they see the whole body of the information.
Yes, so that would be send internal notification, and then you can choose the type, like for example, email. And then from here, this is where you can put in the contact's name, contact's phone number. So that's how you can indicate you have a new lead, and then it will.
And you can still use the same custom value if you wanted to see the message that they sent. In that internal notification, you can still use the contact message body, and it'll pull whatever they reply to you in the automation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this could be very, very, I'm thinking maybe this is say for real estate where somebody's looking for information on a certain property, but also the real estate agent wants to be notified about the person too. So it can go both ways.
Yeah, it's you can also have another trigger that says if they've submitted a form. So let's just say if your first text is like submit this form, and then you can have another workflow trigger that says if the form gets submitted, then you can fire an internal notification to the business owner, and then from there,
Yeah.
you would be able
For
to.
this though, I would definitely recommend joining us for our workflows webinar.
Yeah.
We definitely to discuss like strategies with, building out a workflow.
When will that be?
I think our next workflow strategy, it is in a couple of weeks. If you want, I can send you the links whenever it does get published. It's going to be published on our events page. So if you check out, let me grab the Go High Level events page. I'll give you the link, and then once you see the webinar for automations, that's probably the one you're gonna want to join.
I do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's inside of the chat.
Got it. Thank you so much. You can, I suppose, go to the next person. In the
You're
queue.
welcome. Okay, you have a couple more questions. Manuel had one as well as Nick inside of the chat. Oh wait, can we go to Manuel's question? He has a couple questions. He wants to know if the whisper message is possible to set in a different language.
Oh, for now, no. I think mostly it should be English, but let me double check. I think it's because the way that we pass on the message to Twilio, I think Twilio supported multiple languages because they support so many countries, right? But I think for now, because our system only takes in English, I don't think I've seen any other language there. I remember testing like other languages, and it just won't announce anything. So you can test it first, but most likely not. Sorry.
Can the whisper message be a voice recording instead, or of a robot speaking this type?
The whisper message needs to be a text that we would type here. So it won't, you can't upload something for the whisper message. You would need to type it out, and you would just use the robotic voice to announce whatever you type here.
Yeah, the whisper message is a robotic voice. It gets read out, so you'll hear it.
Yeah.
Right, and then there was another question too about WhatsApp, and when that will be available. Do you know, is that under your purview, Kate, the WhatsApp integration?
Abraham, say he's working on WhatsApp, the beta feature, so he knows better.
Yeah, so WhatsApp is on hold right now. We're going to start a new, Meta has released a new open API. We're going to start building that around Q1 of next year.
Awesome.
Q1 of next year. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us today.
So what else is there?
And I think, I think that's it for questions. Is there any other questions you guys have? Please feel free. If not,
One thing that wasn't covered is logic in terms of time of day that the call comes in. So I know that you're saying a number is hardwired to one person, but there's no way, there isn't any way or to have it so that it's forwarded at different times to different places.
If you capture the calls through the call status, you could have the call, like for example, if you already captured the calls and you fire the workflow, you can have the call to fire at a different time, like to reach out back at a different time. But if you're talking about controlling incoming call, that's going to be based on your device. So for example, if my phone set to do not disturb mode when I'm sleeping, then that's just going to be like the call won't reach me during when I'm sleeping. Is that what you're trying to ask, or
No, I was thinking, some companies have off-hour answering services.
yeah, business hours, right? Yeah. So in that case, I think it might be best to set up like a call status workflow, and then you would have some automation that's fired that says if the call isn't complete, then you would send the SMS, or you can set up a missed call text back saying, "Hey, we're outside business hours, but we will contact you at this time," and then you would have a call that would fire within the time frame that you've set up in the workflow, for example, or maybe in here, specific time, and then you would just fire some calls during the business hour.
Yeah, and we do have a recipe for that in the workflow recipe. It's called the missed call text back recipe. And that should give you a pretty good understanding of the logic behind, you missing their call. So whether it be out of their hours or not, or whether it be out of their availability.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you can always do an if else action to like, if it did come in at a time that was out of their hours, you can do a task or a reminder to reach out to this customer when you get back into the office, or when your client gets back into the office.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking it'd be more straightforward to just say, okay, calls after 5 gets sent to this number, and then it come back at 8 o'clock. It goes back to the office, that sort of thing. I mean, phone companies have been doing this before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so.
think, yeah, these ideas were on it totally. It would be definitely useful if we can look up based on the time. I agree. Yeah. Something with the business hours. But yeah, for now, it's just gonna forward like all calls, like as if you were getting a call on your phone. That would be the case for now.
Yeah. Okay, if there was a inbound call, can we use that as the workflow trigger, inbound call, and then do an false action for the time of day? And then if it happens at a specific time of day, you can assign it to a user and then it'll forward to that number, or would it instantly forward because it's already dialed in? I think that's might be what.
Yeah, the call status is more like later on, so it doesn't work right away. Like it's more like after, because this is what, like how do we determine the call status is after the call is completed? So they already dial in by that time, so we won't be able to do anything for that call, but
With this
for maybe,
workflow.
yeah, only for like follow-ups and stuff, like maybe fire another call during another time, or doing like a missed call text back, so that it's like actions after. There's not anything in place for the calls that fire currently at that time. So yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Kate. Does that answer all your questions, Jules? Everyone else is good?
Yes, I see that it's good, and it has certain, flexibility and certain limitations. But it's fine. It's not designed for outbound calling. It's not designed for call centers. It's not designed for routing to a team, or round. Could you the round robin facility? You explained that there is a document that shows how to do that.
It's this workflow that she has.
Workflow. That workflow. Okay.
Yeah.
So for
It's her
a car dealer or somebody that has lots of agents waiting for calls to come in, we could service that client using this workflow.
A lot of calls coming in.
They have, there's certain companies that have what's called, they have a battery of a panel of agents waiting to take inbound calls. So sometimes one agent may be busy on that line, so that's busy. They would go to the next person, or
Yeah.
it would call round robin so that everybody in the sales team gets an opportunity to field a call, for example. We can't service that currently.
Correct.
Yeah, for example, if you wanna, this is just like calling each users for each call step. So let's just say if you want to round robin the leads to all of your users so they are all spreading evenly, then you can select multiple users in here and it's gonna round robin to each users and then assign them with a user. So,
Okay, I see that. That's the equally split traffic. Got it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Nico. I think we're good to end the live sharing on Facebook. But we'll be here same time tomorrow or same time next Tuesday and Thursday. And then if you guys need to register for those events, it's on the gohighlevel.com/events calendar, or you can complete the survey. And in there's a question that says, would you like to be included in our future webinars? And then I can just send you the information for sign up that way. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.